welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Welcome to Battered Bruised, Not Broken. And this is season 8. Oh my goodness, it's season 8. I can't believe that we are here already. The seasons they move so quickly. I mean, oh wow, it just keeps going so quickly. I'm super excited. I am super excited because we have in the room another phenomenal woman who is going to be sharing her story with us tonight. And I can't wait for you to hear all about it. If you're on right now, you're tuning in, just drop us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know where you are tuning in from so that we can shout you out. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Get ready to just share this link. Share. Invite a friend, invite a family member. Listen, you just don't know what is about to be shared here tonight and how it can really help to impact or empower them. And so I want you to go right ahead and share. Okay. So without further ado, I'm not going to take up any more time. I'm going to get ready to introduce you to the guest speaker for tonight, which is none other than Mrs. Sophia Cassie. So let's welcome her to the stage. Welcome, Sophia. How are you?
Hello. Welcome. I am Sophia Casey, and I'm happy to be here.
Welcome. Thank you for being here, Sophia. Listen, I am excited. I know they're sitting on the edge of their seats right now. They're like, oh my goodness, what is her story? What is she going to share, right? But before we jump right into it, let's start off by, telling them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Oh, absolutely. So I am so grateful to be able to say I am a master certified coach, and I slow down on purpose when I say master certified coach unapologetically, because the master certified coach, the MCC credential, is the highest credential in the coaching industry. There are only about 4% of us out of thousands upon thousands of coaches in the world. And I'm grateful it took a lot to get there. I'm also so privileged to be the CEO of ICLI Rising, which is our accredited coach training school, where I get to train and support coaches to do what I do. I love that. And I would also say I'm proud of being a wife and a mom too, and a mom of a new college student as well. So thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. And so, we know you have a story. And I know they're waiting, like we said, right? They want to hear what your story is. But I want us to start from the beginning. Can you tell us where it all started for you? What's that story that you want to share? Because I know we have a lot. There's so many different stories you can share because you've had so many experiences. But what is that story that you love to share tonight? And then tell us how that all started for you.
And I imagine me, like you, and like the folks who are listening, and thank you all for listening. Thanks for being here. We all have a story, right? If we're so blessed, we all have a story. We all have stories, because as the saying goes, life is always lifing. And I like to say, and people are always peopling. So, so I have so many stories, but when I think about my childhood and being raised in South Central LA, it's nothing like the Boys in the Hood movie that you saw. Like, take that and multiply it by 100. But growing up in a very tough neighborhood, but I'm grateful because I was surrounded by great people who didn't relate to me in terms of the environment that I was in, but they related to me as somebody who was capable of doing what she wanted to do and creating things that she wanted to create in life. The thing that stands out the most for me, though, even having grown up in such a tough neighborhood, my high school was so tough that they made a movie about my high school. You know who played my high school principal? Denzel Washington.
Oh, wow.
So I'm always proud to say that. But that tells you it was a really, really tough high school. And I asked to go to that high school, though. I begged my mother, please let me go. She's like, why would you want to go to such a bad high school? But I had read up about the principal, and I knew the principal also didn't relate to us in terms of the environment that we found ourselves in. So definitely some tough times growing up in Los Angeles, but one of the toughest times of my life that stands out and has really informed the things that I do, the things I'm involved in, and the way I show up in the world is several years ago, my husband, while on FaceTime with me, he was on a break at work. So he FaceTimed me as he always did to say hi. He actually had a stroke right there. Why he was already actually having the stroke and didn't realize it because you can imagine he was a disoriented. And that was beyond traumatic. I mean, to know that your loved one had a stroke is one thing, but to have been there literally on camera with him, I fail at the right words to really describe it. And then once we got him to the hospital and everything, then we found out that he had a brain tumor as well. And the brain tumor did not cause the stroke. And so I say all the time, and he says it as well, that I believe, or we believe, that the stroke actually saved his life. Because if he hadn't had a stroke, nobody would have been searching for a brain tumor. My husband was very young, younger than me. Hello. So, but that was a really, really, really tough time. And, certainly just having someone that you love experience major medical challenges like that, that's tough in itself. But you know what was extra tough, Kamisha? It was people disappearing. That was tough. Like I just didn't expect that. I'm grateful to God to be able to be a person who pours out a lot. I pour in. First of all, I'm a coach. Hello. Being a coach, you're pouring out a lot. I'm a trainer, pour out a lot. I mentor a lot of people. And so that was really, really tough to accept. I was in denial about it for a long time. So that was really tough that, people started to disappear. And so then what I decided, I was like, well, then I might need to recreate my village, because I know I'm going to need some support. But being there in the hospital with him, and in fact, when I arrived at the hospital, the emergency room physician said, basically, Miss Casey, you need to prepare yourself because by the time he gets here and the time that you'll be able to see him, he most likely will have expired by then. I said, expired? And our son, our little boy, was right next to me. I'm like, first of all, could you have told me that by myself? But anyway, I said, expired. I said, oh, no. I don't even know what that means, but it doesn't sound like something that's going to happen for my husband. So they took me in to see him. And I kid you not, Kamisha, because of my faith, I was raised by a family of ministers and believers and evangelists, and raised to believe, certainly trust doctors, but at the same time understand that they are people, and to trust the Most High. And so I walked in this room. I said, well, just let me see him. I walked in the room, and you can imagine the scene. I won't go into details, but you can imagine the scene. Because as he was having his stroke, he actually bit his tongue almost completely out. So you can imagine the scene, and tubes and things everywhere. And I put my hands on his shoulders, one hand on each side of his shoulders, and I held him tight. And I said, you have to get up because we have an agreement. And our agreement is that we are going to raise this boy. And we're going to raise this boy together. So you got to get up. And then I said, I don't remember everything I said, but one of the nurses said, I started to speak another language. And so you and I know what that means. I was like, okay. She's like, but I don't know. You started to mumble and say things like you were speaking another language. And within a matter of, really, I felt like a long time, minutes, but it probably was seconds, his whole body started to shake and convulse. And they were stunned. I mean, when I looked at the doctors and the people all in the room, they were looking like they had seen something they had never seen before. And I just remember the doctor saying, like, oh my goodness, okay, we can take him into surgery. We can go ahead and operate on him. What I later found out is that they were actually preparing for his body to shut down and for him to expire, as they kept telling me. But then after I prayed for him, and his body started to do something else, to where the bleeding in his brain had taken a shift to where they could then go and operate on him. They wouldn't have been able to do so beforehand. And so hours later, they came out and said he survived. He survived.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Wow. Okay. So we're gonna pause right there because we have some stuff to unpack. Okay. Yeah. Whew. And so, okay, so this is your husband. How long were you guys actually married before he took ill? How long were you guys married?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's see. We will have been married. This year we'll be married. Oh my gosh, I should know the answer to that question. So I want to say by the time we were married, by the time he had his medical setbacks, I want to say we were probably married for about 8 years. Yes, about 7, 8 years. And we met and married after knowing each other for 70 days. Yeah. And we'll be celebrating 18 years of marriage this summer.
Oh, wow. Okay, listen. So this is the test of time. You're in your 8th year of marriage. Your husband calls you at work, just to check in on you. Of course, you're excited, and then boom, he has a stroke while on the call with you. Yes. And so, of course, your first reaction is like, something has to happen. You want to check on him. You want to know what's going on. But no, you're in the hospital and they're telling you all these things. And I love the fact that you are such a phenomenal woman. You're determined and you know the power that you carry. And so you spoke a word, and things began to shift. And so now that things began to shift, what was the responses from the doctors when they saw how determined you were and you were not going to come into agreement with their report? What was that response from them?
Well, before, one of the things I remember hearing out in the hallway was, oh, she's just in shock. She's in shock. And what I got from what they were saying, what I got is that, oh, she's in denial. She doesn't understand that he literally is passing away right now. She's just in shock. And I remember hearing that and actually getting an attitude like, what? They couldn't be talking about me, because he's not expiring. Like, that's not an option. I just kept thinking that's not an option. So obviously that was denial, but because you go through those stages. But I was like, that's just not an option. And and I remember the surgeon coming in and saying, after I had gone to his room and put my hand on his shoulders and prayed for him, and then I went back, they took me back to sit down, like, go sit down with me. But I remember one of the surgeons coming in and saying, okay, I need you to be clear about what we're about to do, because he could make it or not make it. But he explained the surgery that they were about to do literally on his brain. And they said, okay. And then, of course, they shove a whole bunch of papers in front of me, right? Like, you got to sign to say that this is okay. And so I was like, okay. And I said, yeah, go ahead. I've always wanted to chop his head off, so go right ahead. And the surgeon was like, this lady. And then he turned to the other physician or whomever the other medical team member was and kind of looked at her like, okay, yeah, she's not quite here. Yeah. Because I was laughing and they were like, why is she laughing? So yeah, it was I don't even know the words for it. I always struggle to find the words for it. It was clear to me though, Kamisha, it's like we were outside of that incident. Does that make sense? Like, the doctors were right there, the nurses were right there, all the people were right there, but it felt like our son was, and my husband we were outside of that reality. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, and so now you spoke a word, things shifted, came back and got the surgery and everything. What happened after the surgery? how was he able to recover from that? Tell us about that part of the story.
Well, he actually ended up having 3 brain operations. The first brain operation, I won't go through all of them, but the first one was mostly focused on, just stopping the brain bleeding, and just relieving some pressure off of his brain. And when he came out of that surgery, they sat me down again, like, let's make sure she understands this. And they said, when you see him, we just want to prepare you for how he's going to look, because he's not going to look like you're used to seeing him look. His face will be extremely swollen. He almost severed his tongue. So there's a lot going on here. His head will be bandaged. And they said, the most important thing we want you to understand is that his brain is actually exposed. I'm like, what? What you talking about, Willis? He said his brain is actually exposed. I was like, well, what does that mean? They said, well, we took a big piece of his skull off. We embedded that piece into his thigh so the cells could stay alive. And so that part of his brain is completely, like, if we move the bandages back, you'll be able to see his brain. I'm like, oh my God. And, instead of, like, some of my friends were like, oh my God, weren't you scared? I just felt, I felt fascinated. I was like, wow, like, I want to see this, and they were like, no, you don't have to see it if you don't want to. I was like, no, I want to see. And I did see it many times. And so that was just completely bizarre. Like, even though I studied medicine part of the time I was in college, I had never experienced anything like that. So that was different. It was very, very different. And then coming out of that first surgery, they were still, trying to get me to understand that, he had a lot of damage to his brain and to prepare for that. And he went into a coma for a while. And one day I just said, you know what? I have an idea. And I got his music. I can't remember which of my friends brought me the music, but I got music. And he's Jamaican, by the way. And so I started playing reggae music for him. Started with Bob Marley, and then his favorite artist. Oh my gosh, he's going to beat me up for not being able to say it. It'll come to me. But he loved Bob Marley, Butu Banton. He just loved reggae music. So I started playing the reggae music, and he started moving his body. Almost, to me, it was like he was dancing, but he started moving his body, and then he slowly opened his eyes. And then days after that, he actually started speaking in Spanish. He had never spoken Spanish before in his life. He does not know Spanish, didn't know Spanish. He started saying in Spanish, "That's my song. That's my song." Every time I would play his music. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm just lost for words. Wow. Okay. So here he is speaking in Spanish. And what was your response when, hearing him speak in Spanish?
Well, I ran to a friend of mine. I speak some Spanish, but I was like, he can't be saying what I think he's saying. And so I asked a friend of mine. She goes, oh, yeah, that means like, oh, that's my jam. Like, that's my song. And I'm like, but he doesn't know Spanish at all. And she kept saying, well, maybe he heard it from somewhere. I'm like, does not know Spanish. And of course, now when I mention that to him, he just cracks up laughing. He doesn't remember any of it, of course.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so now you've gone through that, he's going through the rehabilitative stages and so on. How was that for you as a wife? Because I can only imagine your life changed it's like in a second. And then you had a young child, had to become like a single parent, you had to you're still trying to manage your career, you're trying ready to move into business. So many different things that are happening all at the same time. How were you able to maneuver it all?
There were days where I didn't. There were days that I didn't. I'm grateful for the really close friends that I had that understood that I first was diagnosed with PTSD from literally being there and seeing all this happen. And so that there were days that I wouldn't really make sense to the average person in things that I was saying or how I was behaving. There were many days and I don't even know how many days, because I just literally would lay on the living room floor and pray and cry, be in the bed for days. And I ended up practically moving into the hospital and sleeping in that very uncomfortable recliner. Hospitals, you all got to do better about that. But this recliner, and I had our son with us, and I'd make him a pallet. The nurses would help me make him a little bed on the floor. And we literally lived at the hospital for quite some time. And then because his hospital was so far away from our home, then they gave us an apartment to stay in for a while. So that part was just, I can say clearly, I know I got through it because of the grace of God, because of my faith and my unstoppable spirit. Like it's challenging for me to take a no and just sit down. I'm always, and it's also part of my training as a coach. It's like I'm always thinking about, like, what are the possibilities? I'm always problem solving, like what else could be possible? Like I don't have to just stop at your answer. So that part was really, really tough. And again, the people side of it was even tougher. Having people constantly coming in the room and looking like doom and gloom, like he is not going to make it, or he's not going to. One of the medical team members said, I just heard her say the word vegetable, and she wasn't serving lunch. So I'm like, why is she calling him a vegetable? That was really, really, really tough. And I was self-employed at the time, and full-time. Was that right? Yeah, full-time self-employed. And so you can imagine I had to stop my business. I mean, I couldn't do that and then get our son to school and all of that. So I ended up taking our son out of school, and thank God for this angel. Shout out to Kim. She knows who she is. She mentioned to me that she had virtually schooled her son. I knew I couldn't homeschool our son. I was just not in the right mental state to have to do lesson plans. Even though I was a school teacher for almost 20 years, I'm like, I cannot take that on. But with virtual school, at least here in the US, the curriculum is already done. So I didn't have to create his curriculum. I chose to supplement his curriculum. So he was able to be virtually schooled. And so then that means he was able to be glued at my hip and travel around. I could restart my business. I was a trainer, did a lot of coach training, facilitation, but he could travel with me and set up the classrooms and things like that. And I'm so grateful to God for that. He's grateful too, because he's seen the world. So, yeah.
Wow. And so as you were going through that, because you're building resilience, because that's pretty much resilience, you had to become even more resilient than you already were, at what we call, strength, like, other, because it pulls this inner strength out of you. But as you were going through that, at any point, did you ever felt like giving up? Did you ever felt like, what, like, just take this life because this is not my life? Everything just drastically changed and you didn't want it anymore. How did you navigate that part?
There were many times, I never said I quit. I never said I quit. I'm not doing it anymore. I quit. I just never felt like that was my truth, that I quit. But there were many times that I did many quits, MINI, many, like little quits. You know what I'm saying? Like temporary quits. Like I quit answering the phone today. I quit responding back to people. I quit trying to take care of all these other things outside of what's happening right now for my life. But overall, I just, it's like quitting wasn't an option for me. I just didn't see it as an option. And of course, looking into the eyes of our little guy, my son, that certainly helped me, stay focused. Like, okay, I may need to quit right now for this moment, but I need to come back. I need to be back. And overall, I need to keep going. But I tell you, it was and there's some days that I forget, Kamisha, just how incredible of a time that was. And one time, one of my therapists told me, she says, Sophia, a lot of people leave this earth having gone through what you have gone through. Like they literally quit, they stop. And I needed her to keep saying stuff like that to me, because when you're in it, it was just like, I gotta do what I gotta do. So I'm grateful that she and some of my friends also would remind me of, like, Sophia, this is a lot. This is a lot. Yeah.
And so, did at any time did anyone question your reasoning for wanting to still stay married? Because I can only think that some people would have, in that process, they would have been thinking, okay, at this point, based on the nature of where he's at, it's not really going to work. At any point, did you even think about it? Did you even give thought to that?
I never thought, as we were going through this, I never thought about that as an option either. Like that was nowhere on my screen until I did have some friends and people who said, basically, like, why are you doing this? Let him go. I even had people say, because I actually married a single dad. My husband was a single father. And so I got our son when he was 2 years old, just turning 3. So I'm the only mother he knows. And, he's my child as far as I'm concerned. But I had people say really cruel, insensitive things like, yeah, and you shouldn't be so focused on taking care of his child. And I'm like, take care of his child? Like what? Like, my mind couldn't even comprehend that somebody would say something like that. But yeah, I got a lot of ugly comments and suggestions and opinions that I should just let that go. Let that go. And it was from friends, family members, and his family members. Like, why would you be doing all of this? And of course, and I understand some of my friends, it was coming from care for me. Like, why? It's just too much, Sophia. Maybe you should just let this go. And then later on, people started talking about that I should move on and meet somebody else. And I said, maybe one day that'll happen. But right now, that is not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on, making sure that we get to see tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I couldn't think way down the road like that.
Wow. Okay. And so, just going back to what you said earlier, because you said the son was actually 2 years old when you guys had gotten married. And when this incident happened, you guys were already married for 8 years. So that means the son would have been like 10 years, if my math is correct.
Yes.
So he's like 10 years. Yes. I know you said he's in college, so he has to be like 21, 22, right?
Well, and no, he just turned 18.
He just turned 18. Okay, so he's only 18. Okay. Yeah. So now he's 18 and everything. And how has the process been this far, in terms of his dad's recovery? Where is his dad right now? Has he fully recovered? Is he still recovering? Where is he at?
He is, I say he's always in recovery. He is, I have it that he is, he's getting better and better every day. And then he does have setbacks as well. So right now he was in our home for quite a while. And that became extremely, extremely difficult for him, for me, for our son, because of the brain damage. A lot of times he wouldn't really know where he was, and he would go outside without us knowing and be doing all kinds of things. One of the things he used to say a lot to people, to strangers, to anybody who would listen is, he'd say, hi, can you help me get to Hollywood? And people were like, what? He's like, yes, I need you to help me get to Hollywood because Tom Cruise is going to make a movie about me and my wife and all that we've been through. And I remember one doctor saying, he said it in the hospital so many times. And one time he said it to him, he and I were laughing together about it, right? Now, he wasn't laughing because he meant it as a joke. He was laughing like from excitement, like, yeah, Tom Cruise is going to make a movie. I'm laughing because I'm like, dude, no, I don't think that's happening. But one of the physicians said, you may want to consider like not building him up when he tells that story because it's not reality. And I said, I'm not going to stop him from telling that story. It's reality for him. And that story may be one of the only things that's keeping him going and giving him hope. It clearly brings him joy because every time he talks about it, he's smiling, he's laughing, he's excited. And it comes from memories of when he was a child because my husband was fixated, his siblings told me since birth, about making it to Hollywood. Making it to Hollywood. So I said, why would I have him stop telling that story? But it was really tough, when we tried to keep him home, and a lot of people said, no, don't let him come home. You're not ready for that. But you can imagine, my son and I, we missed him. So I thought he was doing well enough to come home, but it was really, really tough. So now he is in what I call a rehabilitative home. So he actually lives in a house. I say he's living better than me, but he lives in a house not too far from us. It's on 5 acres of land. He has tons of animals and he gets to help a lot outside. So it's a really good place, and I'm grateful, so very grateful for his caregiver.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. And I have to ask because I'm sure those who are watching are probably thinking. And so, as a successful woman like you are, you've been so successful. You've been doing amazing things. Making a lot of waves over there. But and here you are in this situation, which is a peculiar situation, one that really, really shows your strength as a woman and a wife, standing by the side of your husband. How have you been able to deal with, not having him with you? Because even as strong as you are, as successful as you are, you're going out there, you're making waves, you're doing things, but you want to be able to still come home to, the one that you love, share things with him. But based on his current situation right now, you can't really have those types of conversations that you probably would have had in the past. So how have you been able to, grapple with the fact that that reality no longer exists and it's like a new reality now you have to create?
Yes, that was it took me quite a long time to accept that it had to be different. It took me quite a long time to say, okay, well, maybe this will be his new normal. It took me a long time. And one of the things that helped me a lot is I never referred to myself, and I still don't refer to myself as a single mom or a single parent. And not that I have anything against single. I was raised by a single mom, and a very good one too. But I felt like if I kept saying, oh, I'm a single mom, I'm a single parent, it was discounting him as Josh's father. And they were extremely close. You can imagine he was a single dad. So I didn't want to discount that relationship, and I didn't want our son to hear me referring to myself as a single parent. And so that really helped me a lot. Just, I created that mindset for myself that I am not a single parent. I am parenting singly. I just made that up one day. I'm like, okay, I'm parenting by myself because he can't do all the parent things, but he's still his dad. We talk several times a day. One thing that the brain, his brain injuries actually created, I would say, he was always OCD. I mean, like very meticulous, literally OCD about certain things. But even after the brain surgeries, it was even more like he does things on the minute. So he calls the same time, at least 3 times a day at the same time. So that really helps, that we talk every day. We still see him, we go out as a family, we do things. That helped a lot, but it has been tough. It has been really, really tough. And especially because, like I said, I was self-employed. And I had to stop my business for quite some time. But the thing I'm so grateful for is because I was a coach, well, I still am, but because I had a business as an executive coach, I could work from anywhere, right? So long as I had a phone, and most of my clients, I would coach them over the phone. But even I had a computer, so I could pretty much work from anywhere. And so once I felt like I was at a place where I could work, because in our line of work, we are pouring into people. Even though as a coach, I walk to a different definition of coach than what you see out there on the internet. So my definition of coach and what we teach in our coach training school is a coach doesn't tell people what to do. We relate to that client as they know what to do, and they're naturally resourceful, and we are here to support them with getting some awareness around that. So I didn't have to worry about performing, and I got to be able to tell these clients what to do. I felt like I was so well trained as a coach that I could turn my business back on, and I did. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And then I created a journal, literally in the hospital, because I love to journal. And so the nurses would bring me just pieces of paper or little notebooks or notepads, and I would just write. They didn't even have to make sense. Sometimes when I look back at some of the pages, they're just like doodles and like they don't make sense. But it calms me to just like write. And I have to physically write, like not type. I want to write. So one day I was sitting in the hospital next to my husband, and he was sleeping and our son was asleep. And I just started praying and calling out to God. And I said, this is so hard. I know who you are in my life, but this is hard. And I'm exhausted. And I need to talk, but I don't know what to say. And I need to get this stuff, these words, these thoughts, I need to get it out. But every time I would go to journal, it would just look like gobbledygook. So I was getting frustrated by that like my brain, I'm like, now my brain's not working. I can't articulate on paper what I'm feeling. And I kid you not, Kamisha, I heard it just as clear. Go create what you need.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
So it's go create what you need. And so I started thinking about it. I was like, I need a journal or a book or something where somebody's asking me questions. I could answer questions, but just to sit there in front of blank pages and start writing, I would start and I would stop. So I just kept hearing that, go create what you need. And I literally, right there in the hospital, got on my laptop. Well, first I drew it out. I drew out what I thought I needed was a book with some questions, asking me some questions that I learned in my coach training when I was being trained as a coach, some open-ended questions. How are you feeling? If you could have anything you wanted right now, what would that be? What do you need? Like just open-ended questions. And I started writing that down. Then I got on the computer and started trying to lay it out like I could see it in my head. And then I had asked a couple of people who I knew had created books or journals and they had self-published. I asked them for help. And I said, will you help me do this? I'm not an author. I have no desire to be an author, although now I have 8 books, but I have no desire to be an author. But could you just help me? I don't even know the process. Like, how do you write a book or create a journal and then get it published? And I got no's. And some of these people are people that I helped. So it was never an outright, no, I won't help you, Sophia. It was the hemming and the hawing or not calling back, or you know what I mean. It was a clear no. And that hurt. And that stopped me for a minute. Um, and then well, again, I started calling out to God. I'm like, I need your help. Like, I don't know how to do this. And before my husband got sick, I was working with a graphic designer to create my website, and she did a phenomenal job. And then I wasn't really able to use it because I was in the hospital with my husband. But she came on my heart, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to her. Her name was Crystal. So I said, Crystal, I need your help. She is a phenomenal, well, she doesn't do it anymore, but a phenomenal graphics designer. So I was like, I need your help. Can you just I'm going to email you what I created. Can you take it and make it look like a book? She started cracking up laughing. She's like, what? No, I don't do books. She's like, do you mean a book cover? I said, yeah, can you make the cover, but also format the book itself? And she was like, I just know you're going through so much, Sophia. So I'll try. I'll do the best I can. And she did a phenomenal job, and it's beautiful. And then I called her back again. I was like, okay, can you help me publish it? She goes, Sophia, I don't know anything about publishing. So she's like, I can call some of my clients who have, they're authors, and I can ask them. And she did. And then she called me back. She said, well, a lot of them, they said they did it themselves on Amazon. So she said, I will sit here with you and we will figure it out together. And I will never forget that. I will always, always be grateful to her for that. And she helped me upload it to Amazon. And then I pressed submit. And 2 weeks later, it was published and it was on Amazon, and I could sell it. And it became an Amazon bestseller, which is like,
Wow.
what?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my ease of coding. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations on that. Congratulations. They always say it's in your time of pain that you're able to birth stuff. It's not even that's why we look at, childhood bearing. That's when the child actually comes. Only when we get the contractions and the pain comes, that's when the child is able to give birth in labor. And so you were in the labor room and you birthed something so phenomenal that is not only helping you, but can help other women too. So really congratulations for that, and for doing that. Congratulations. Okay, I know we're coming close to the end, but I have to ask this question. With everything that you have been through, at any point, did you ever blame yourself? Did you blame yourself for what was happening to your husband?
No. I can answer that one easily.
Okay, good. Good.
No,
Good.
I didn't. And the reason I didn't, I believe the reason I didn't, and I never really went there, is because I trust God. I trust God. So I'm like, okay, if this is happening, then there must be a reason that it's happening. But I never blamed myself, and I didn't blame him. My husband, I almost went there because I felt like he wasn't quite feeling himself days before, but sometimes men are like, oh, I'll go to the doctor. He finally did. But so I almost went there with him, but I didn't even blame him. I'm like, this is reality. So, I spent most of my energy on, okay, what are we going to do? And most of my time asking God, which I still ask him all the time in my prayers, what would you have me to know? What would you have me to know? What would you have me to do? Who do I need to be in order to survive this? And so I was clear that blame was not going to help at all. Now I was angry, very angry with his medical team. I felt like they failed him in many ways. His job, when he actually was having the stroke, they gave him a soda to drink. Yeah, and he had been seizing or stroke, the beginnings of the stroke hours before that, and they didn't do anything. So I was definitely angry, and I took care of that legally. But yeah, I was very angry about that. That why would you just be waiting and give him a soda? They actually, some of them thought he was having a diabetic episode and that he needed sugar or something. but even then, I didn't blame them. I didn't blame the medical team. Like, I didn't spend time there. It honestly didn't come up for me much to blame. My head was so full with keep breathing. Sophia, just keep breathing. That's all you got to do. I remember saying to myself one day, you just got to breathe. That's all. Just breathe. That's all you got to do. If that's all you get done today, you've done enough. Just breathe.
Wow.
And that kept me going. Still does. Still does.
Wow, wow. And so looking back on everything that you've been through, is there anything you would have done differently?
That's a great question. Is there anything I would have done differently? I still would have married him after knowing him for 2 months. Let's see. Is there anything else I would have done? I would have been more adamant about. I felt like I was a really good advocate, and I still am a really good advocate for him. But I would have gotten more support around advocacy, like having somebody help me be an advocate, and so that it was just not so much on me. No, I can't think of much that I would have done differently. I'm grateful for the times that I allowed myself to be vulnerable and lay out in the floor, and the times I allowed myself to say to people, no, I can't even hear what you're saying. Early on, I actually had started a business with another coach, and she got angry with me because she was like, Sophia, like basically snap out of it. You got to get back to work. We got to get back to work. I said, I can't do that. I won't do that. I probably could have pushed through, but I was like, no. So, and I don't even have regrets about that either. That was me taking care of myself. Like, nope, can't do that. So no, I can't think of anything that I would do differently. No.
Wow. Listen, it's definitely been a pleasure talking with you. But just before we get out of here, I want to ask this lasting question. You know, for any woman right now, maybe she's watching, maybe she's in a similar situation and she's feeling like she's losing her mind, you know, because life has drastically changed and has changed suddenly for her. What would be your words of encouragement to that woman right now?
Definitely just breathe. You know, just breathe. Like, lower the bar of the things that you absolutely have to do. So, you know, if you typically do 17 things a day, let's lower that list. Lower that list to 2 things, 3 things, and have at least one of those things be to just breathe. Just breathe. I would also add to remind yourself that it's okay not to be okay. It is okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be okay, to be polished. It's okay not to answer people's messages. It's okay not to show up fully as yourself. Like, it's okay. And then lastly, I would say, get quiet. Get quiet and get still. You know, one of my favorite verses is, be still and know. Like, just be still and know that he is God. And in that quiet space, I really do believe that we get the answers. We get the answers to the questions that we're asking. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Listen, Sophia, I really want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming out tonight, you know, being so brave, so bold, and sharing your story with us, you know, because I know that it is helping a lot of women, those of them who are tuning right now and those who will tune in later. I am sure that they have been blessed, you know, with something that you have said. And so you talked about being a coach and you do, you know, you do so much, you know, tell us what's up next for you. You know, you also talked about your book earlier. Tell us exactly how we can get a copy for those of them who are on the line right now. They're like, oh, I want to grab a copy of that. Tell them where they can find it.
Absolutely. So, my most popular books that went straight to the bestseller list is Ease and Flow, the Ease and Flow Journal, which I mentioned, and then I wrote a fiction book. Like what? Like I am not a writer, but he gave it to me, and that's called Fierce Vulnerability. And right now they're both on Amazon. I may be changing that. So if you don't want to go to Amazon, of course you can come directly to me. And the thing that gets my most attention right now is I'm grateful to have 3 businesses, but the one that gets most of my attention is our coach training school. I love training coaches. I love mentoring coaches. And so they can find me on social media by Sophia Casey or just ICLIrising.com.
Awesome. Tell me that again. Tell me your .com again. Let me have that pull up on the screen for them.
Or it's ICLI Rising.com.
Rising.com. So ICLI rising.com. It should come up on the screen at any moment now, and you'll see it coming up at the bottom. That's the website. Go directly onto that website and make sure that you grab a copy of the book. Make sure you find out if you're interested in coaching. You're on the line tonight and you've heard about it and you're so interested. You want to know, how do I get this done? How do I get my certified certificate for this? You want to go right out and reach out to Sophia. So click the link. Make sure you are on that site. Follow her as well on social media so that you can learn more about what she does as well. I see a comment just came in and it's from Tracy, and she said, we always think that we are going through rough until we hear another person's story. Thank you so much, Sophia, for sharing and being so transparent. God bless you. And so, yes, thank you for those words, Tracy. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Once again, thank you, Sophia, for sharing. And those of you who didn't get an opportunity to share, this link is going to be up. So you can share with your friends and your family. Make sure you share it with them because you just never know where they're at. I just never know what Sophia might have shared here tonight that can really encourage them or uplift them in this time. And so thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be right back here next week as we continue this series. And I'm going to pull on the screen shortly so you can see those persons who are going to be a part of this season. We have 12 women, 12 phenomenal women. You just met Sophia right here. And we have another few women as well. We're going to be coming up. It's coming on the screen any moment now. You'll be able to see it. And they're going to be sharing their stories as well. We're going to have upcoming Hillary is going to be in the room too as well. And we're going to have Kadeen. We're going to have Sophia. We have another Sophia. Yes, we do. And so we have Sophia, who's also going to be in the room too as well. We're also going to have Dr. Lisa. There are 2 Lisas in the room. So we have Dr. Lisa Waller, and we also have Lisa Seymour as well. Shanae Weeks as well. Bambi is going to be next week, so you want to look up for her. Dr. Angela Bennett and Alexis Lee, and also Takesha as well. Sharika is going to be here too as well. So you don't want to miss this season. I'm telling you, this season is going to have you at the edge of your seat because of these powerful stories that these women have to share of what they have been through and how they have overcome. And so I look forward to seeing you right here again, back in the same room, same time next week as we continue this series of Battered Bruised, Not Broken. And remember, share it with a friend. Do not keep this to yourself. Share. And we'll see you right back here. Have an amazing night, and we'll talk to you very soon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.